Today, does propagation seem like a mystery to you sometimes? Or if you're maybe like me, you thought the solar cycle was a setting on your washing machine? Well, then we're all there right with you. Next on Live Free and Ham. Hello and welcome to the Live Free and Ham podcast. This is our bi-weekly show where we discuss ham radio topics in New England, and New Hampshire and beyond. Whether you're a regular listener or first-time guest, we're excited to have you here and appreciate your support. And thanks for tuning in tonight's episode. So let's get into the show. I'm your host. First name's Eric, call signs N1JUR, and I'm with my co-host.
Hey, it's Paul, N1OG.
And Todd, W1STJ.
All right, and as always, in usual fashion, we're going to get into a few things before we start into our topic. As always, our storefront's been up at livefreeandham.com/shop. As I mentioned in our live stream, we have officially released our two latest shirts. Those two new tees are the Ham Radio Found Me shirt. That's a favorite of ours and Todd's, and my new favorite one off of the Only Hams kind of crowd is Send QSLs. So, head on over there, pick up your shirts, and, support the show, as we all appreciate those folks that have supported us. And we always have stickers and hats and a whole boatload of other great stuff over there. So, take a second, point your browser over in that direction and check us out and help support us. And we thank you guys for those that have. And so with that, we also have got some other great stuff coming up. Obviously, we're in the month of June, and we are going to be doing some awesome stuff for Field Day. Paul, I, and Todd will probably be hanging out Friday night at our Field Day site, doing a happy hour kind of live stream. So there'll be some great food, great, drinks, and us just playing radio and hanging out and having fun. We may have a couple of special guests. We'll never know, but we'll keep that lid on that for a little bit. But either way, we'd love to have you guys come and hang out with us as well. And maybe work our ways right into Field Day. And with that, we also have our favorite segment here.
Doing good.
Good.
Doing
good.
good.
You do. That's good.
You good? You good?
You're doing good.
Absolutely, I do. Good.
Doing good, Bob. Doing real good.
Right now, my only outlet is my ham radio.
Well, yes. So I've got to ask our listeners, what gives? Come on. We're looking for those folks out there who are hanging out in clubs and doing some great things. I know I've heard the stories. I've talked to people in and around, but we want to give you the opportunity to showcase your club and the activities that you're doing to make ham radio a much better place for everybody that are involved, whether they're new technicians or they've been in the hobby for 40 years. So use that opportunity. Open up your email client and send us an email at livefreeandham@gmail.com. Let us know what's going on in your clubs, and we'll be happy to promote and give a little love to you and your club, and share the wealth, share the good stuff. I don't know about you guys. I want to hear about it. How about you,
Eric? I don't think anybody's doing anything good.
Apparently, man, that's what I'm thinking. It's like every club really sucks.
Everybody's just being lazy, and they're doing bad things.
Oh, man, horrible. It's just the hobby's dying. That's it. The hobby's over. It's all falling apart. Anyway, well, it here. I know it for a fact. Just email us. Let us know what's going on. We want to share the love. All right. Well, as always, we love to dive into our next segment. So let's dive into.
And now for something a little extra with Todd, W1STJ.
All right. Well, you've heard it here. This is where we help Todd study for his extra class license. As always, in each and every episode, we pick 3 questions from the extra class pool, and we're starting in the new pool to test his knowledge and hoping to see if he can get his upgrade. So if you obviously like to follow along, you can head over to hamstudy.org. It's a great resource and helps us prepare for your test, and is always recommended by 3 out of 4 volunteer examiners. And the American Dental Association was obviously unavailable for comment at the time of survey. So without any further delay, let's head over to our VE Quizmaster. Take it away, Paul.
All right, Todd. So we're starting fresh with the new question pool. which is effective July 1st. So question number 1 from sub-element number 1. Which of the following amateur stations may transmit one-way communications? A message forwarding station or automatically controlled digital station. B, a local repeater or linked repeater station. C, a space station, beacon station, or telecommand station. Or D, all of these choices are correct.
And then there's the I don't know, correct?
I don't know isn't an option. You have to at least guess.
Yeah.
There is no phone a friend.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say all of them are correct. Oh. All right. Let me go. My second guess is the B. No.
One more. Oh,
The correct
that was a
answer
tough one.
is C, a space station, beacon station, or telecommand.
Okay.
A local repeater transmits one way when it gives out its call sign.
Well, beacon is different. Note the word beacon.
Yeah. So
but
here's
a
the
repeater-
little tip. There's only one answer with the word beacon. So think of a lighthouse beacon, which only sends a signal one way.
Yep.
Good
You can't
idea.
respond to a beacon. All right. Well, hey, that tough start, but let's plug away. Keep going. You've had a little bit of vacation.
Let's hope that this isn't a sign of the times.
It won't be.
Gotta start all over again.
It can't. Otherwise,
All
our
right.
show ratings are just going to go down the
You're the
toilet.
most amazing guy.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Todd. Question number 2. Which UHF amateur bands have frequencies authorized for space stations? Is it A, 70 centimeters and 33 centimeters? B, 33 centimeters and 13 centimeters? C, 70 centimeters only? Or D, 70 centimeters and 13 centimeters?
I'm gonna go with C, Paul. My final answer.
Oh man.
It's D. It's 70 and 13.
What's the 13 centimeter band? So is it? Yeah. See, these new questions are a pain in the butt. Like they're just like, hey, let's just put a little spin on it. Wow. Let's not call it the 440 and what's 13 centimeters? Giga? It's a gig band. Isn't it like 4 gigs or something like that? I can never remember. See, that's how bad I am. So don't worry about it, Todd.
Yeah, I think it's a 1.2 gig.
Okay. So
I think so.
yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll look at it.
All right.
just so I feel important.
Question number 3. Except in some parts of Alaska, what is the maximum power permitted on the 630 meter band? Is it A, 100 watts PEP? B, 50 watts PEP? C, 1 watt EIRP, which is equivalent isotropic radiated power? Or is it D, 5 watts EIRP? So, except in some parts of Alaska, what is the maximum power permitted on the 630 meter band?
In some parts. The left part only.
No, I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say C. 1 watt.
Oh. I would say 5.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
5.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Damn.
Yeah.
Why did they have to use words like? Go ahead.
I knew it was low. I knew it was 1 or 5. I couldn't remember, but I remember that similar question.
Really?
Now,
Why do they have to use
that question is on the existing pool.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Still,
Yeah. All right.
now I'm annoyed. Except in some parts, like I don't live in Alaska. Why did I have to know? I know,
there's
granted, when I get there.
There's some like remote parts of Alaska you're allowed to use higher power just to get out to be able to reach someone because you're so
I'm gonna
far
call.
out. You're so
I'm gonna
far out
call.
in the middle of nowhere, like
True.
there's no one. You need the wattage to at least talk to someone.
I'm gonna call Kevin KE7LC and ask him because he'll know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna figure that out. And
All
for
right.
the
Well, at least
for those
hey,
folks,
look on the
Go ahead.
bright side. I'm not gonna have to hear that stupid song. So let's go.
and put it this way, just how smart we all are. We were totally all wrong, Paul. 13 centimeters is not 1.2 gigahertz; it's 2.4. So we've all failed.
All
But we'll all remember it next
Are
time.
you
Wouldn't we?
stupid or something? Mama says
Exactly.
stupid is as stupid
It
goes.
does. Amen to that. Oh man, yes, it's going to be one of those evenings. All right. Well, so as always, so if you're on the journey to studying for
Did I
your,
get a third one?
I thought that was
three.
a third.
Oh,
That was three.
I got all three wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, man, another one coming. Whatever.
Oh well. All right. Well, so if you're on the journey to studying for your technician, general
Don't
or
be like
license,
Don't be like
in that
Todd.
case, make sure you use your hamstudy.org. It's an excellent resource. It's which Todd should know for getting your ticket. If you've recently received your license or you've been upgraded, we want to know. And as always, we'd like to recognize you on the next episode for your hard work and effort. You can always email us at livefreeandham@gmail.com, and we're surely going to mention you on the next show. And so sadly with that, in our usual format, how are you guys doing? How's your ham radio week there, Paul?
Hey, you know what? Not bad. I haven't gotten to do a lot of radio. I think I say that every time, really.
Okay.
I've been playing around with the new FD3DR.
Right.
It's nice because now I can't hit the Bedford repeater, but I can hit Epsom. And
Which is just around the hill.
Anyone can hit Epsom from anywhere. I hit Epsom in what's that town? Warren, New Hampshire. That's in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountains, and I hit it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but 5 watts with an HT.
No. I'll bring my HT. I'll bring my HT next time I'm up there, and I'll see. I bet you I could hit them because it was pretty clear.
That's what I'm using. So, yeah, it works.
So my question: did you ever solve your APRS issues on the 3DR?
No, I gave up on it.
Oh, okay. What's holding you up? I'm curious.
I just don't care that much about APRS.
Man, I want to know where you are every 5 minutes. I want Tim, KC1QDK, to constantly tell you over and over again, hey, I know what you're doing at the grocery store.
He's the star.
He is.
I'm not a big fan of APRS. Number one, on my 400, it just beeps all the time. And there's no way to turn off the beeping. And then
there is.
No, there's not.
Mine doesn't beep.
Why does mine beep? I've tried everything to turn it off. It'll beep even when I've muted everything. And then on the 300, I might be working or trying to see, and then all of a sudden it shows up, and I don't want it to show up, and I got to figure out to hit back or clear or whatever. And I can't see anything anyway, so it's just I'm not a big fan of it.
Well, all right. Well, it sounds like both Paul and I have to help you out there.
Well, okay, I put it on. Here's the reason I put it on, because I know I'm broadcasting or whatever I'm doing, and it's using the bands, and that's good for ham radio. But I'd really rather just have one of my stations on the national call frequency and then on the repeater, or have the repeater and then scan the other ones, But
so when I'm around here, I have the A band in my truck is the repeater.
Yep.
And B is the calling frequency. When I went to Florida, B was APRS running the whole time, and A was the calling.
Right.
Yep.
Because I didn't have repeaters programmed in, but I just let APRS run, and let me tell you, a 6-7 hour drive, if it was beeping at me the whole time, that would drive me nuts.
No, do you have do you have the 300 or the 400 in your
400?
Car? Well, then you got to show me how to turn it off, because it beeps all the time.
Well,
I hate it.
I have the 300 and mine doesn't beep at all either.
The 300 doesn't beep in the car.
Okay.
It just annoys me when I'm trying to look for a frequency, and all of a sudden it picks someone up.
Then I can fix that. The problem with you popping up with it's popping up with the information of the closest station now is how far that station is away at the moment.
Right.
I can show you how to shut that off. That's easy.
All right.
But hey, if you don't want APRS on, that's totally fine.
I leave it on. I leave it on.
See,
like I would like put it this way. I need the 400 is more important because I turn my 400 off because it beeps all the time, and then my wife gets upset. She goes, "Will you turn that thing off?" Because even when I turn the volume down, it still beeps.
Yeah,
like so it annoys her. So I got to get it off. It needs to be silenced.
Well, Paul, step in, please help them.
Yeah, it's just a menu setting. Like,
yep.
I'll send you my file.
Okay, cool.
So, all right. Well, anything else that you're not doing in ham radio?
A lot of Booster Club stuff. 4th of July is the one fundraiser for the Booster Club. It's the Sparkler 5K in Merrimack.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're local and you want to help the running sports Booster Club in Merrimack, I believe registration is $35 for an adult. It starts at 8 a.m. on the 4th of July.
So, question with that: you doing any radio comms for that?
No, actually.
Do they ask for any radio comms, or they ever look into that, or no? They just don't care.
Nobody's ever discussed it.
Wow, interesting, surprising. I would be very I know our club is always kind of looking for some of that stuff. So yeah, it'd be interesting to I never know, but yeah, I'm always curious.
Yeah, I mean, if there was like 4 or 5 guys that just wanted to do 5K.
It, yeah, that'd be cool. I'm sure we could get 5 guys in our club to do it.
Well, there you go.
Okay, well, good on that one.
Sorry
they don't have comms, but anyway, always good to hear. And all right, Todd, how was your ham radio week?
Yeah, it's not happening, or it didn't happen.
This is going to be the anti-ham radio show.
Yeah, well, I mean, I talked to you a few times on the repeater. I got a little repeater stuff, but it's just been this baseball. I got a coach now that I'm coaching with. He's the head coach, and he does baseball practice. He wants to do it every day of the week. Now, we're dealing with 11 to 12-year-olds. That's it.
Yeah.
It's too much. And it's supposed to be an hour and a half. It ends up being 3 hours. And I'm just like, dude, we cannot do this all summer. Like, I can't do this all summer.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I've been doing that. We had our town, Amherst, Sauhegan played in the state championship. So we went to baseball at Delta Dental Stadium where the Fisher Catch play. So we got to see the kids play there, and they got killed. But it was cool to see them on the big field and stuff. So, and then today, I almost didn't make this because I was at a cookout for the travel team baseball.
Or baseball.
Or baseball. So if it's not actually playing baseball, it's watching baseball, practicing baseball, or going to cookouts for baseball. So ham radio has not really happened this much for me this week. But in 2 weeks, I'll be heading down south to the beach, and I'll be in North Carolina. And I will be setting up at the beach house. I will be bringing my gear to Parks, and I'm looking forward to that. A little ham radio, POTA fun in a different state. I'm not sure how far I am to South Carolina, but if I get up early enough, maybe I can road trip it before anyone gets up and cruise down there.
Get over the border.
Get over the border and pick up another state. But and then on the way back, North Carolina.
Okay.
Somewhere near on the beach, somewhere near Wilmington or north of Wilmington or south. I don't know if it's south or north, but it's in that general area. And on the way back, we're going to stop at DC. So hopefully I can maybe convince the wife to go do a tour.
So you're driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then there's no reason why you can't do frequent you do exactly like I did. Plan to not tell your wife you're going to do POTA, but then say, hey, we've got these places we can stop along the way to take a break and stretch our legs and make them parks. And then just stop at the park for, 20 minutes, set up your radio, make 20, 25 contacts, 10 for all that matters, and then get back in the car and then, get back on the highway and drive. I mean, it's a great break. I guarantee they won't mind it.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I got Zach who wants me to drive. He wants to leave at midnight so I can drive all day to get there. I'm like, Zach,
wow. Really?
I'm like, no. Oh yeah.
He's not even old enough to drive. What does he know
Yeah.
how bad that is?
And then they're going to be, look at, we went to New York. We almost there. That's only a 3-hour drive. I mean, this is going to be like a 15-hour drive.
15. Load up the iPad, kid.
Yeah. So we already bought iPad holders for like behind the seat, the headrest. So
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure he downloads a shitload of movies. And we're just going to go for it. So
Yeah.
Well, when
you
you're in,
definitely
when
need to
you
play in your parks.
when you're in DC, right?
Mhm.
If you're brave enough to drive, if you park at the agricultural building, right, and at the side of the National Mall, you can get 5 parks all at once.
Oh, dude, that's golden. You got to do that.
Where? Yeah, I'll do that. Where is that at?
Yeah. So I found this guy when I was down there, and he's got a van, and he just sets it up, and he's got all his antennas on his van, so he's just in the van doing his thing.
Yeah, I'll do it in the truck.
But it's a 5 fur.
Nice.
Because of the close proximity to all the monuments and the National Mall and everything. Like, yeah.
You have to. Do you have a coordinate to that? Because
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send it to me because I will go to that parking lot and I will activate 5 parks at once. That'd be freaking awesome.
It's not a parking lot. You got to park on the street. But
yeah, I'll park on the street.
Go tell the wife and kid, go for a walk for a little while.
Yeah.
I just be like, hey, walk down to the Washington Monument, and when you come back, I'll be done.
Yeah.
Yep. That'll work.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I want that 5 fur. I need a 5 fur.
Yeah. All right.
All right, cool. Anything else non-ham radio besides baseball?
Yeah, I've just been working around the house. I gotta rip up my deck. I gotta put up my new weather station. Give Eric my old one because my old one wasn't working, broke, but now it's working again. So I'm gonna put up the new one and give Eric my old one. Let him play around with it, and no guarantees that it's gonna give temperature. Some days it gives temperature, and other days it doesn't. So it's got a mind of its own.
Random.
But yeah, it's a Tempest weather station. Highly recommended. It was my fault. I dropped it and it cracked. So I duct taped it together.
It's sort of like a radio Paul hasn't mentioned. But anyway.
Yeah.
Dude, dry it out real good, seal that crack up, and you'll be fine. As long as, as that's been burned out.
I already ordered some, and it worked. And then over the winter, it stopped doing temperature. And then we were at Prest, and I was talking to Bill because I was going to give it to Bill that he likes to take things apart. Figured, yeah, you can take it apart and experiment with it and tell me what the hell broke on it, and whatever happens. And he and then I went and looked, and all of a sudden I was like getting temperature readings and everything. So I was like, shit, for the last 2 weeks it's been giving temperatures because I just wasn't paying attention to it because it really wasn't. It was just doing like all the other stuff. So I'm gonna put the new one up, give Eric the old one. Hopefully it'll keep working. So it's not even the thing cracked. It's like it's like the outside thing just it cracked, but it's not like it cracked into the inside. So I don't know what was right. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
But anyway, I figured that'll be so I got to get that up before I take my deck apart. And then I got to put up the misters because I'm going to put the misters up because I'm going to be working on the deck. I figured if I have the misters hanging up above the deck when I'm working, keep me cool. It gets hot. Yeah. So I'm pro thinking before I rip this deck up because once I rip the deck up, then I'm kind of stuck. I'm going to have to really.
You got to get it done.
My priority hasn't really been my priority.
So tell me there's going to be a photographer in the bushes taking pictures of a soaking wet Todd shirtless with a hammer in his hand.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be seeing that.
I would say more of a webcam, but hey, we get the only hams cam. We'll get you a subscription.
So listen to this. So here's kind of off topic, but speaking of webcams, we've got a game camera, and I got to go find it somewhere on a tree somewhere, and I don't even know if it's got batteries in it or not. But last year, I shoveled out so much shit. Like some animal is shitting in my my what do you call it? My storage tent, shelter logic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I cleaned it all up. I put mothballs down. I go back into it in the spring, and there's a freaking more pile of shit in the same spot where all the I'm like, what the fuck is? I have no idea what it is. Like just I mean, it is like piles. Like I had to take like the snow shovel and like literally like 10 of them to just get it out. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I'm gonna set up the game camera and freaking catch the little bastard and see who's in there. Find out when he's coming and maybe I have to shoot it because it's really pissing me off. Because I'm like, what the hell? Because it's like
Gotta
where
have a heart.
we store all our like pool furniture and stuff like over the winter, and then I'm dragging it all out. I'm like, what the heck? How did this thing get in here again? I mean, it smelled like mothballs in there. Like I thought animals don't like that stuff. But
You got me. I only know ham radio.
yeah. So that's that the reason near that is where I'm putting my antenna. My DX
the
Commander, and I was clearing that all out, and I waited a couple weeks, and now it's like covered in freaking weeds that I had all out. So I got to go and attack that. So all these things have to be done within the next 2 weeks before I go on vacation.
Man, busy. All right, well, I don't know how to top that one, except that I guess my only baseball reference that I'll throw in here real quick is my son, who's obviously graduated now, but he had, as we all know, the Bananas, Savannah Bananas are big, baseball team that everybody wants to watch tickets and get tickets. They were at Fenway this Saturday. Yesterday. And the college guys all got, because one of the players who was a previous manager on the team 2 years ago, basically, still stayed in touch. Long story short, it's now a PR guy or something like that for the Bananas themselves. So he's like, hey, if any of the Johnson Wales guys want to come and do, concessions or souvenirs or something like that at Fenway, they'll give you a jersey. You'll do, that stuff prior, and then you get to watch the game. And so, Cody was like, my son was like, should I do this? I'm like, dude, are you dumb? Like, I would do that. I mean, like, can I take your place? He's like, no, it's got to be guys who are playing on the team. I'm like, fine, then you need to go. And so he went, and he had a blast. I mean, they had a whole bunch of old Red Sox, players come and pitch in the real game. And, he just had he's got a nice button down, typical baseball jersey, nice jersey for what he got as a, kind of so everybody in the concession stand could match. And, he's got a nice on Savannah Bananas on the front, and, he had a blast. So that's my baseball thing, kind of jealous. Tickets were totally sold out that place. You couldn't get anything. I was, pretty perturbed when I
one of the kids one of the kids got the lottery. It was $200 a ticket.
Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
So it's like normally, like, if you can get them through the Savannah Bananas or whatever they're called, they're like $40 a ticket. But with these lotteries, $200 a ticket. But the thing is, it's like a whole day event. It's like you go there. It starts at like 2. And they go until like 5, and then they do a 2-hour game, and it's like,
he left at like 10 o'clock to get down there by like, barely like 11:30, 12. So it was a blast. He had a blast for sure. So all good. And he enjoyed that and had a lot of great stories to tell. But, so for my ham radio week, let me see. I don't know. I have been trying to put a bunch of videos out. I sent you an email, Todd. I have to say thank you for mentioning on the live stream. I don't know if you saw in the Discord, in our little private Discord. The lovely Res guys have heard your cries, Todd, and said that you were going to buy one, so they're saving you from having to me spend your money, and I am going to be getting an eval from them to kind of do a matchup. So I'm going to finally get a chance to put the Res 80. The Mad Dog Coil 80 and my Wolf River Coil 80 all up against each other and test it all out. So I may have to elicit some of you guys' help, especially when we do some whisper tests.
I want to come to that. I want to come to that when you test those out, because I want to test them out too.
We're all going to have a little section and spread out in the park and separate videos. So we all, time it and coordinate it just to see what we can do for whisper tests and really, put these 3 antennas to their test. So looking forward to doing that. And outside of that, I'm still, I'm struggling to try to finish up the antenna video for the Faraday and my Ed Fong antenna. I just been, it's been kicking my butt. I just, today I was going to try to wrap it up, but then I was like, you know what? I'm a YouTuber. I can decide to take the day off. So I took the day off, and, through the whole entire time, I'm like, man, I should have done that. Man, I should have done that video. I should have finished it off. And so, Yeah,
You
it's
should
not
you
gonna.
should have done it this morning. It was pouring out.
Well, that's what I was hoping to do. I was like, oh, it's raining. I could, get the raining portion, kind of set up for it. And I was like, I don't want to be on the rain. It's not fun. I don't want to be like, why would I want to do that? And so, I suffered. So those that have been waiting impatiently for that you're going to have to wait impatiently more for. That's kind of what I've been doing ham radio wise. There's one other thing. I'm finishing up, the little bit tidbits here and there to get to my 891 printed. Ryan, I finally got my little 3D. I don't know if you can see this here, if I hold it up here. For those that are listening on the podcast, I'm holding up my little 3D stand. This is the first version of the stand. It went from actually this, which is the CAD cardboard cutout, to a 3D printed version, which is a little too small, to now the second or third iteration. Ryan's working on printing that for me. So I should have that hopefully in a day or two. And then I think I've got everything I need for grounding and ready to mount the radio. And I've got a couple of little add-on switches that I'm putting in that are, USB-C, so I can do digital from the truck. And, I'm putting in a toggle switch for being able to switch between, we'll say, shore power, which is truck power, and a separate battery, so I don't have to drain my truck battery if I want to do a longer extended stuff. So I'm doing a whole bunch of things that I'm hopefully have together.
So you're what you're explaining to me and what you're doing inside your truck is kind of like what I wanted to do when I was in high school, but I wanted to have like the subwoofer in the car and take out the back seats for the speakers. Your truck's gonna turn into a mobile ham radio station shack, and your wife's gonna be like, she's gonna be like, so let's just take your truck to dinner tonight. Yeah, you're gonna have to sit in the bed because
that it is not like it was in the early 50s, where like the passenger seat was taken up of all the ham radio gear. I actually have the console very neatly tucked in the center console, and there's nothing that my wife would ever have to touch on her passenger side, so she could be her passenger princess.
So you say now until you get an amp for that bad boy and takes up the back seat.
No, God, okay, so here's my state. If I have an amp in this truck, I want you both to drag me out into the backwoods and bury my body, because I do not need to have a kilowatt in the vehicle. I'm sorry, there's just no need.
500 watts is good.
No, not even. we 100 watts is the max. If I'm ever going to put any amps, it's going to be in the shack, not in my truck.
It'll be a 2-for-1 sale.
Oh God,
it'll be buy one get one half off. You wait, you'll be coming.
We'll just mix it in the holders.
It's like buy a kilowatt, get 500 free.
1.5. Awesome. Okay, well, enough of my ham radio week. Outside of that, we're going to kind of talk, as we alluded to at the beginning of the show. We're going to talk a little bit about propagation. For us, it's, or for maybe you as a listener, if you're new to the hobby, it might be something mysterious and technical. And every time someone talks about it, your head kind of spins. But at the same time, I want to kind of put a little warning label up front to this, is that, first and foremost, none of the Live Free and Ham hosts are experts. We are all learning, we're all understanding. So I don't want to hear any hate mail from, the old timers saying, you don't understand propagation. Yeah, I know. We're all learning. We're just trying to share some of our knowledge and pass it on. Again, a lot of the stuff that I come from, at least when I can speak for myself, is that, it's a very generalized understanding. So, we might get into some technical stuff. We might point you in the directions, some technical details and websites and books and stuff, but know that, we are just in the same boat as you, but we're hopefully, giving you a little bit more, knowledge, so you can be a little bit more equipped to understand the mysterious SFI index and whether or not, solar flares are your friend or enemy.
All I know is that 20 meters this summer versus last summer sucks. Because last summer, I was talking to Australia like they were my next door neighbor. This summer, I can't even talk to Pennsylvania. I mean, what is going on with 20 meters lately? It's been like months.
It's been quite a while, man. I'm with you on that. I don't know how to fully explain it, except that, none of us really know how to explain it effectively to say why it's definitively a problem, but we all know that there's a lot of factors involved in making those decisions and whatnot. So I guess
Ever since we had that big solar storm, 20 meters was like destroyed. Like that storm, that what was it? Like that big
it
storm
was
that
like
they were
2 weeks ago. Yeah. 3
No,
weeks
it was
ago.
longer than that. It was way
Oh.
longer than that.
Oh, after you're talking about after the eclipse.
Yeah. There was a
Okay.
big solar storm, right? Ever
Yep.
since
It was
then,
the beginning
20
of May.
Yeah, it's been complete crap. Like 20
Mhm.
meters has been terrible. And I don't know what that storm did to the 20-meter band, but it needs to correct itself because it's really getting annoying.
Well, so let's kind of phrase it, frame this out a little bit. So obviously we've all had the benefit and being lucky of having great propagation moments on 10 meters, on 20 meters, when we first started, say, during, say the pre-COVID and COVID, and then leading kind of past that. And 20 was kind of a little rough here and there, but I mean, we still had a lot of great times. I mean, my contacts show that I'm literally, like where I was hitting on average 60 to 80 contacts, for an hour at a POTA park. I'm barely scraping like 10 or 15 now. And that's like, that's testament, those numbers are hard and fast for sure. What's your experience? I mean, obviously Todd, you shared a little bit about that, like, do you find like it's like the doom and gloom's coming, or are you just like, hey, I'm just going to roll with it?
Me personally, I mean, I go for it. And like I said, I think it makes me a better ham radio operator because I got to work harder to make the contacts. I got to be very apologetic. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your patience. Because my experience lately, at least doing POTA with the ham radio, is like it comes and goes in a wave. So like I'll get the first half, but then the second half of their call sign drops off. And then they repeat it and it comes back. And I'm like, just the second half. Because, every like few seconds it drops out, it comes back in. Or it sounds like, at least for me, it sounds like a lot of people are off frequency, but they're not.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just been more difficult. I've also been getting like Wisconsin a lot, and they've been the clearest, which is crazy because like Wisconsin's not something we normally, at least I don't normally get them. Period. I mean, normally I get the South,
Mhm.
but yeah, Wisconsin and Minnesota, I've been getting a lot of them, and they've actually been better for me than like hitting Florida or North Carolina, South Carolina, which are normally like real easy to hit, at least from New Hampshire. So, but yeah, it's been a challenge, but it doesn't prevent me from going out and doing the activations. It's just it'd be nice to just to have some clear, 5.9s again on 20 meters.
Every contact I make is a 5.9. What are you talking about?
Yeah. A real 5.9, a legit 5.9.
How about you, Paul? Similar experience, a little different, mix of the two.
Yeah, well, so after the eclipse, I really started paying a lot more attention to the space and the space weather, and having the ham clock set up. Like I have all the space weather, and it's like, oh well, BZ. What is BZ? And what is the A index? What is the K index? And what is the solar flux index? And right. So I really wanted to try and understand it more. I found a great PDF online, Victor Echo 2 X-Ray India Papa editions, and we'll link to it. But it's a very great explanation of how to understand the propagation reports and what it all means. Right now, to like make it super simple, right? You want low A and K, and you want high sunspot, but a low solar flux.
Which, when you say that, it's like, oh wow, that makes so much sense. But then you're like, what does that actually freaking mean?
What does that all mean? Right.
So me being the simpleton, spots are good, flares suck. You don't want the flares, you just want the spots.
Right, but is a high spot number better or a low spot number better?
Any spot's better than a flare.
Well, but like last summer, you look at the difference. The sunspots then were like 40s,
Single digits.
9, like they were fluctuating, but they were really low. Now we're consistently 100 plus.
Yep.
And most days that plays to our benefit. When we have instances like we had with that G5 storm, which was actually a combination of like 5 storms that all came together. It's just, it overloads the ionosphere. And so if you go back to like high school chemistry, right, that every atom is a nucleus with protons and electrons, right? Well, those electrons are free energy. And so when the ionosphere gets blasted by the sun, those electrons kick free. And so then you've got all these free electrons floating around, and they're just there. They're blocking your signal, and they're reflecting it back down, or they're eating it up if there's too much.
Right. Well, and that kind of plays into like, so there's kind of like a lot of forces at play with those indexes that I just am still getting my head wrapped around. And like, so when you were just kind of talking about the ionosphere, like the ionosphere is just not this like one layer that we see, like when they take the side shot of the Earth going out to space. It's like there are actually 3 layers in there, and each of those layers all behave differently during the time of day. Or if it's 5 layers, okay, so I only know the 3 and the 3 that are important to me. So I don't know what the other 5 do, but they probably are important that I just don't pay attention to. So throw down some great knowledge to us, Paul. What are those 5 layers, and kind of help shine some light onto us idiots here.
Well, it's just the knowledge is fresh in my mind. So daytime, you've got the D layer. Yeah, and that's good for us in the daytime in the higher frequencies.
Yep.
Right.
So like 2 meters, 440 gigahertz, that type of stuff, or 10 meters too, right?
10 meters.
Yeah, 10 meters. 15, 17, 12. Like they're that's where you're using that D layer. Then above that you've got the E layer, and the E layer is thinner. But that's where like you'll get to play around with sporadic E, right? In the upper, UHF, VHF. And then you've got a little bit of a gap, and then you've got F1 and F2 during the daytime, but at nighttime they become 1.
Oh, okay. So I was like, I'm like, I know there's D, E, and F. I didn't think you were taking the 2 F. Like I always knew just F2 and F1. They sort of like F1 kind of disappears and F2 kind of becomes primary during the evening hours and stuff like that. Or is it the reverse? I can't remember.
Yeah, they just become 1.
They all become 1, right? So
yeah,
okay, yeah, okay. All right, now I'm with you now. Okay,
but it's still that's still 4
layers, yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
Okay, but so really, like there was a really good book, and I'll mention at the very end that kind of threw down some truth to me in some of this, and making it make more sense. Is that you always like, you ever sit down with like a well-seasoned ham who just knows what's going on, and they're like, they look at their watch, they look at their time, and they're like, oh yeah, well I can't be on these 5 bands or these 4 bands because I know I'm just not going to get the DX, or I'm not going to get this. And then when the gray line moves, and all of a sudden we're getting closer to darkness, all of a sudden they're like moving to 20, and they're moving to 40, and they're moving to the the lower bands, and making major great contacts in those sense. Like, have you kind of figured out that mystery, in the sense of when and where those kind of time shifts occur? And like, is it gray for you, or is it like just kind of like that's a definitive, okay, I know when A plus B equals C, this is the way it's going to play out?
Well, all right. So for me, it's logic, right? So, morning time, your higher frequencies are going to kick in really quick.
Okay.
But so that the transition from the sun hitting the Earth's atmosphere and that gray line turning into daytime, that change happens really fast. Now in the evening, that change happens a lot slower, where you'll still get some of that D effect in the gray line. So it's all a matter of trying to figure out how far away you're trying to get, right? Because that makes a difference, right?
Yep.
How far away are you trying to get, and then figure out the frequency that's going to do the job, and that's where you want somewhere between the maximum usable frequency and the lowest usable frequency to get you to where you want to be.
Well, so isn't that the funny thing is, like, in my mind, and maybe this is kind of how you guys thought, and Todd, you can chime in. Like, when I got on the radio, I'm like, I just want to make contacts. I'm not thinking like, where am I going to? Because I know my RF just kind of goes everywhere in most cases, unless I've got a beam. And, and I know, from everybody telling me that, hey, if you got an end fed, the biggest bulbs of RF are going off the ends, and they're just going everywhere. And so you're kind of thinking, it's like, well, it's not sort of directional. So you're just thinking, I'm just spraying and praying. And so I always grew up with the idea that hey, if I'm lucky, I get Europe. And if I get lucky, I get, Puerto Rico at the same time. But, there is some, as you're kind of explaining there, Paul, a little bit of science. Is that kind of how you felt, Todd, when you started to kind of play with HF?
Yeah. I mean, I learned just from trial and error that 20 meters will go into dusk and even into the evening, but maybe an hour, at least, not exactly, but around an hour of like pure darkness, it kind of dissipates, right?
Mhm.
And then I would switch to 40. And then I found that 40 will sometimes be okay, even at dusk or even a little bit before dusk. Like, as the sun's going down, it'll start to pick up. So like if I was going to do a late shift, I might jump in on a 40 right off the bat, because
Mhm.
it's going to start coming in, and I'm going to hope that it just gets better and better as the night goes on, which it typically does. I've also noticed, like, 10 meters, like when we did our rove, we did 10 meters all day until we got to Maine, and right, it was starting to get late. It was like 5 o'clock, and it
Yeah.
just kind of died, and we had to switch to 20
Mhm.
because we just weren't getting anyone. But the whole day we were just nailing 10 meters. Like, it was like ridiculous. It was a beeline to Europe.
Europe.
But when we finally got, what time was it, like 4 or 5 o'clock, I
Yeah.
think, when we finally got to Maine, and yeah, and it just kind of wasn't working anymore, so we just switched to 20. But I think we could have also switched to 40, because that was around
Or
the time.
15 or 17. We probably could have
Yeah.
hung on those bands too and done
Yeah.
pretty successfully.
So I do it by trial and error, but at least I have a general idea of what bands are going to work. And I have an app that I use, and I don't really follow that app too much, except when it says every band is poor. Then I know it's a crappy day.
Poor.
Like, if it says poor on both sides, night and day, it's like, I'm not doing ham radio today. But it has been for the last month and a half, 2 months. It always says during the day, 20, 40 during the poor. And then in the evening, it says good. So
Okay.
it seems like the evening bands, the 40s, the 80s, are better than the day bands of like the 20s, the 17s, 15s. So that's just what I've been seeing. But I don't always go by the app, because I've seen the app where it says 20 has been poor, and I've made 40 contacts in an hour doing a park,
Right.
in the middle of the day.
That's actually a good point. I want to put a pin in that and come back to that, because it kind of brings some light to something I want to talk about in a second. But so, Paul, I mean, in your experience, I mean, do you have you obviously talked about everything that you've kind of said so far is everything that I kind of gathered out of the book that I'm reading, and I'm rereading over and over again. And I'll mention it a little bit, but ultimately it talked very much about that whole process of oh, where do you want to go? And that's the old adage, just oh, you don't plan a trip and just say, I'm just going to go that way, and not come up with more of a definitive plan. And so, HF is kind of no different in that. So do you kind of follow that philosophy now that since you start studying KNA index, or no? Or have you always done it?
Yeah, no, it didn't actually occur to me how much that I paid attention to propagation until I started kind of looking into this deeper. But one of the things that you brought up was, the antenna, right? And the antenna plays such a big part in the propagation, because typically the higher your antenna is, the lower your takeoff angle will be. And so it'll give you a much longer trajectory when you're reflecting off the ionosphere and coming back down. Whereas if your antenna is lower, it's going to have a higher takeoff angle, and it's going to be shorter, right?
Yep.
The difference between NVIS and a regular dipole up half a wavelength. But you also got to take into account, like a lot of times we're using portable antennas that are using ground wave, so we're not using skywave at all. Like our chances of bouncing signals up, that's not going to happen for us. Those aren't the antennas we're using. So you want to make sure that you're in a place that has really good conductive soil, right? You guys being close to the beach, like it doesn't get any better than that for doing ground wave.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yep. Oh, seven Park Row for sure to prove that. Okay. Well, so minus the fact that you don't have to become a soil management or dirt expert. I mean, obviously understanding the basics of soil and the purpose, like as Paul alluded to, I mean, obviously when Todd and I were doing our 7 Park Row, we were on the beaches. I mean, there was literally just salt water and sand and nothing interfering with that. Whereas like you get, say, like in the Granite State, we're a big giant rock, for God's sake. I mean, half of the state's pretty much all granite, with a little bit of dirt around it. So those play into a lot of factors when it comes to, where and how you set up your antenna, what type of antenna you're running, and a whole bunch of other things. Even before you kind of get into like what are the ionosphere kind of looks like, it's more like, okay, well, what am I playing with now today, and how am I setting up, and where am I setting up is going to build in, all of those factors to making, a better decision as to whether or not you're going to radiate towards Europe or radiate towards the South, or, or just be a giant RF bubble going up and going nowhere. It's all of those kind of areas. So yeah, this is all awesome stuff. And I'm sure probably a lot of folks are just like, wow, okay, we're shedding some light on some things here. But I think when it comes to a lot of us hams, like some of us like our quick and dirty information. So like Todd alluded to, like we have all of our apps out there that tell us like what's propagation kind of looking like. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The way I understand those indices and what are created, it's almost like it's a best guess a lot of times because they don't have anything of future data. It's only at that moment in time, or the data that they've used to accumulate to that moment in time. So say if I open up the app at 9:30 in the morning and I look that the propagation is going to be horrible for 20 and 40, during the daytime, but like in the afternoon, it's going to be okay. Well, there's no reason why to say the inverse doesn't happen with that like midday, all of a sudden, propagation for 20, which was being reported at the time, was going to be crap. You might find that it might not be as bad. I mean, there are those moments. You guys ever run into similar scenarios like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have. I mean, I said it earlier that, I've seen poor on my app, like 20 meters is poor, don't do it. And I get on there and it's like booming,
Yeah.
20, 20, 40 contacts, within an hour up to 60. And the propagation app said it was poor. And I've had other times where it said it's been good and it's been crap. So
Yeah.
I use it as, I use it as just like a guy. I mean, I'm guessing that those apps and the people that are doing that and reading the weather, it's like the weatherman, right? Like the weatherman said yesterday that it was going to rain and it didn't.
Yeah.
It was a nice day yesterday. I was like, where's all this rain we're supposed to get? And then today, they said it was going to rain and it rained. So they're just off by a half a day or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know.
6 hours.
Yeah, 6 hours. That's a quarter of a day, whatever. But anyway, my point is like, it's not a exact science. So you just kind of use it, but it doesn't prevent me from going out there. I mean, like what's going to prevent me more is like the physical weather. Like if it's pouring out like it was this morning, like, yeah, I'm not going out to do a park in the pouring rain unless I like absolutely have to. And there's some special reason, like this is the only time I can do it. But as for the solar, weather, I'll take my chances.
Yeah. How are you with that process, Paul?
Well, I think it's funny that that Todd said it's not exactly scientific. There's literally
there's a lot of science behind it.
There's experts that are 1,000 times smarter than we are, but they've got these frequency things all around the world, right? And what they do is they beam different frequencies straight up. and they listen to the reflection.
Mhm.
And these little devices all over the world is what figures out the critical frequency. It's what is the frequency that just disappears into space,
Mhm.
right? And what are the frequencies that come back? And that's how they guesstimate, right? The maximum usable frequencies and the lowest usable frequencies. But there's way more science into this than I could ever comprehend.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't scientific. I was just saying that,
You heard it here first.
the weather is science too. And I'm telling you, weathermen get the forecast wrong 90% of the time, at least here in New England. I mean, I wish I could get as many times wrong that they do and still
And not
get
get
paid.
fired.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we've had times here where it's like, oh, we're gonna get 4 feet of snow, and we get like an inch. We're
Mhm.
just a couple inches, and we're snowed in. I'm like, how can you be that far off? And then they
Oh.
make the excuse like, oh, the storm shifted 20 miles. We weren't expecting. I mean, it's getting better, but still. So I'm not saying it's not scientific, but there's not like, the scientists and the science says, okay, today on this day, this is going to be perfect frequency for 20, perfect timing. Band's going to be awesome for 20 meters. It fluctuates, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to pinpoint exactly how the bands are going to be based on what the solar flares or spots or the science behind it. I think they can give us a general idea, but
Right.
like you said, we've had times when they've all been saying it's been poor, and I go out there and physically do it, and it's great. So
Yep. Well, and I've done it myself. I went out and activated a park on really bad conditions, and you look at the spotting page, and there's 36 POTUS stations all activating on 20 meters. It's like,
how can it be?
Like, it doesn't add up.
That might be more accurate than the science.
Well, unless it's just that, it's only good for, short, and it's not good for the DX.
Well, right. Totally. I mean, in essence, so that's actually kind of good direction to go in. I mean, obviously when you don't pay attention or you try to say, I'm going to just buck the system and just go do it anyway, there's nothing wrong with that. And, it in my mind, I think provides a good challenge for folks to say, hey,
absolutely.
I'm going to go out and play. And so I know I did a video on it, and I'm very firsthand experience. I learned the hard way of that same moment, bad conditions, everything like you just described, Paul, is like all ground wave. I was getting people literally that were like, I could have got on a repeater that close, like less than 30 miles away kind of ordeal. But like the time frames in between contacts, all of that stuff was it was a long, long slog. And so, it plays in any which way. I mean, and that might be like what you alluded to before, is that, the best antenna is obviously what you put up, but at the same time, bring a couple of different ones, because a vertical might be a little bit better for that scenario versus like a wire antenna or whatever. I haven't had a chance to play with that, that variable yet. And I think I should, because it would help at least solidify with me as okay, how do you deal with those conditions and those situations where the bands are crap? And you hear everybody complaining, don't go out and play, don't go play radio, and go try 2 different antennas and see what you get. To see how one performs over another, and go from there. I mean, have you guys any of you guys done any of that at all?
No, but I'm looking forward to putting up my DX Commander, because I think that's going to be fun to see if can't hear someone like Alaska, but I switch to vertical. Maybe I'll be able to hear him, because I get Alaska pretty clearly, when I'm doing POTA with my vertical antenna. So I think that's going to be kind of something I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how that makes what that difference is like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely there's definitely times where I'll be sitting at home, and my primary antenna is a dipole 65 feet up in the air, right? And so it's perfect for me in my location. But if if the skywave is no good, right, and I'm not hearing anything, that really high noise floor, whatever, I could go out to the park and I could put up any number of antennas that are going to use ground wave propagation, and I'd have a successful activation and have a ton of fun, because it's taking out the atmospheric noise. It's, you know, it's listening lower.
Yeah, so it sounds like a good tip in some of this process is that, you know, if your home, you know, shack is not doing as well in the conditions or whatever, that, you know, getting out and trying something different than what you might have as your original setup, like you just described, that you may find, you know, exactly your lower noise floor. And, you know, you might be hearing some of those contacts that you weren't hearing wherever you're currently at. And the conditions, like you already described before, like soil conditions can be different, you know, and all of those factors can help improve, you know, your ears, we'll say, to be able to get out and hear, you know, and that's kind of been my experience. I think when, you know, I see 36 POTA, you know, stations on, and you know, I know one or two of them have been on there for like 3.5 hours. You know, they may be doing way better than I am at that moment, no matter, you know, what the time frame is, or, you know, all of the other factors we talked about. And, you know, they may be using a better antenna, like you described, you know, and to their benefit, are making better contacts because, you know, it's the antenna that's performing better in those conditions, right? Agree?
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
Sometimes you got to change your propagation.
isn't that your mind? I thought it was, but anyway, propagation sounds better. My wife keeps telling me I need to change my mind all the time. I'm going to tell her propagation from now on. All right. So, all right, let's kind of, let's talk to some of the other questions. So, in terms of, like, you know, any mysteries, obviously when you are going through your head analysis and going to do a POTA as an example, what kind of your strategy when you look at some of those the data? Do you have a kind of a strategy? Is it more of a knee jerk reaction, or do you really kind of dive into the tools at the nth level and spend a good time, you know, analyzing what you see to then decide what you're going to go out and do?
All right. I guess I'll jump in here. So when I plan a park, right, when it's not a spontaneous thing, when I plan one, I'll watch the space weather. I'll look at the propagation reports, and then when it comes down to it, it all doesn't matter.
No, right?
Because I'm going anyway. So it doesn't matter.
True that. So just throw it all out, right?
Yeah, I'm normally like at the last, like, oh, I can go do a park then, and I'll look on the app. I'm like, oh, poor, and then I was like, well, I'm going anyway, so I just do it, and you know, you make it happen. So.
Okay. So it sounds like basically we just throw the baby out with the bathwater with this process, which I'm all for, because that's exactly how I do. Like, I literally am going from job to job, and if I'm like, okay, I got an hour, I'm gonna find a park. I'm not like, let's pull over the side of the highway and do the SFI index and, you know, to confirm all of my gut feelings and go from there. So yeah, that I think, you know, that is. Go ahead.
I think there's more. I think more people are like, we're just going out there and doing it anyway, no matter whatever the propagation says. I mean, people are out there. You know, they're doing parks. They're on the air. They're playing radio. I mean, it doesn't stop. I mean, look, you go out there and you see nothing on a waterfall and you hear nothing. Then you obviously know the band's dead. Try another band.
First check to see if your antenna's plugged in. That's my first suggestion. Right. then decide.
Right. And then, but you know, if 20 doesn't work, then you drop it down to 15. 15 doesn't work, try 10, 12, whatever. I mean, that's one of the nice things with the vertical antennas is it doesn't take, at least the portable ones like the Buddy Pull Pro or the, what is it,
Wolf River or whatever.
Wolf River Recorder. Any, you can change them to, you know, whatever band you want. It doesn't take that long of a time to do it. And it gives you the opportunity to kind of mess around. Like if you have a, you know, a dipole or a wire in a tree, you know, you might have to throw another wire up. So for me, I just kind of I just go for it. And if 20, normally 20 is my go-to band. Like if I'm in an emergency, like I always start with something different. Like when I'm alone, I'll try 10. If 10's dead, I might go up to 15. And then if I'm still not getting much, then I go to 20, and then boom, you activate the park, and you know, then you mess around and maybe you go back down and see what you can get. Or sometimes if I don't have enough time, I'll start with 20, and if I activate the park, I'll quickly switch it down to 10 or 15 to see if I can get them. So for me, I'm like you, Paul. If I'm going out to do a park, it really doesn't matter. I'm doing it anyway, and hopefully I'll get 10 contacts. I mean, knock on wood. I've made all my parks that I've attempted. So I did have one. Yeah. I did have one though in Connecticut that I think it was Connecticut. It's either Connecticut or Rhode Island that I was there for like 2.5 hours trying to make 10 contacts. It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yeah.
I am just not leaving. I'm at like 8. I'm like, I need 2 more. I'm not leaving.
You need 3 more at least because you want to make sure one's not going to fail on you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my God, this is killing me.
Okay. So how about you, Paul? Anything you want to throw in there?
Yeah, no, just I mean, it's good to know, it's good to understand. But at the end of the day, you just got to try and plan what's best for where you're going and what you're doing, whether that's at home or whether it's portable.
Yeah.
Just you just got to figure it out.
Now you alluded, we kind of alluded to, and Paul touched a little bit on the maximal usable frequency, the muff and the luff, and those aren't made up words. Obviously, if you took a technician test, you should know about those. But the funny thing, when I took my technician test, I grazed over that, I was like, I'll never need to know that. And then when I finally got into really HF and started playing around, I went, why are all the, like, you look at I have a geochron, and my geochron has a nice overlay of like all the muff and luff numbers. And it's like, what do those numbers mean? Oh, those have a benefit. Those are actually like numbers I should pay attention to because they tell me that's the best opportunity I can have for targeting that area based off of where I currently located and, how much power I can put behind it and what antennas. So those factors, and we could spend hours getting into this, and I don't think that we want to be a 4-hour podcast show here. But if you want to learn about those factors and understand, especially if you're in your home shack, where I think it'd be beneficial, because I found that if I paid attention to those numbers and the modes I was going to be operating in, if I found that the maximal usable frequency at the time, that number in that area, say I was targeting Europe and I was looking for contacts in Europe area, that number and the bands that kind of follow with it kind of tell you pretty clearly, like, oh, the high, the maximal usable frequency is 20 meters in this area. So you have the best advantage to target your contacts for that area. And when that kind of happened for me, I was like, light bulb. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that makes sense. That's simple. I can understand that relationship and make that, sense of it, instead of trying to say, well, if the K index is 6 and the A index is 4 and the SFI index overall is like 207,643, like, what does that give me for an advantage? It's like, you kind of like, oh, well, it's like, baseball scores sometimes when you just look at them, you just get drowned in, the stats all the time. You just never really understand like what you're really looking at the very end, and not making heads or tails out of it. Did any of you guys, have you guys dived into a little bit of the muff and luff stuff at all?
No, Todd.
Nope.
Well, yeah. So, I don't like the muff and luff map per se.
Okay.
But
it's confusing.
Yeah, well, but I will use vocap on occasion.
Okay.
Which like, say, I don't know, I'm looking for Africa stations. All right, what are my chances today? And I'll look at vocap.
Okay, cool. So that good reference. So let's kind of we touched on just real quick, and I don't want to kill people with the overwhelming content, but there we'll go over some references at the very end that you can refer to, and we'll have them in the show notes as well. That will help kind of get into a better explanation that I've learned from, and Paul and Todd as well. That we obviously mentioned solar flares and sunspots, and Todd already said solar flare bad, sunspot good. So I think we're
flares.
Especially if it's an X class.
Yeah, right. See, and funny is, like, when I first got back into the hobby, I was just like, oh, I can't wait to see the next solar flare. And I was like, because you think solar flares, like, oh wow, great, energy and all that is a bad energy. Yeah. And for the longest time, I was like, why aren't they helping us? They're just making it worse. So yeah, all of that gets just more muddled and muddier as you kind of go through the process. So let's kind of talk about some resources real quick. I've got a few, but I know Paul, you've got a few, and Todd, you could throw in if you've got any, where you kind of dove into to learn a little bit about this, and we'll make sure the show notes and you can kind of explain them. I'll give you the floor, Paul, since you've got a couple already.
Well, so like I said, vocap is a big one. It's just vocap.com//HF. And the VE2 XIP PDF write up, he just explains everything very simply and easy to understand way.
Okay, cool.
And I just call Paul when I need to know what the spans are going to be like.
555 RF prop.
Ham Shack Hotline.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Speaking of Ham Shack Hotline, you got to get yours fixed, Todd. They upgraded the numbers. You have to regen your phone.
Yeah.
Long story. Okay, so I got a few. The one that really kind of got me into this, and I can't remember where I got the reference from. It's a great book. You can get it on Kindle. It's called The Fast Track to Understanding Ham Radio Propagation by Michael Burnett, and his call sign's Alpha Frank 7 Kilo Bravo. Really good book, writes it in very plain, simple English so you can understand. And it really kind of opened my eyes a little bit to understanding really the whole K and A and really how it plays into, the muff and luff. And then he dives into a lot of some of the history in the back of like, how did they do all that stuff? And I know Paul touched upon some of those transmitters and stuff like that. And Hertz and all of his all of his inventions and stuff like that he did to be able to build all of that in place that we use today. So that's always good to learn that stuff. And I always reference it. But the other tool that I finding I'm getting a lot more benefit out of it, I don't know if you guys are at the same time, is Whisper. If we use FT8 and FT8 mode, I do Whisper tests probably like once a month or so with my antennas here in the shack. And basically I just set it overnight and I let it for a run on, a couple of different bands just to get an idea of, what it comes back for data, who sees me, what the Whisper net, hears and how far I get out. I know it's just a snapshot in time, but it's probably a good snapshot from where I'm currently sitting and residing in my shack. And so if you ever want to kind of see how your antenna stacks up or just, how far you're getting out, I mean, Whisper tests are definitely a good thing to test your equipment and your, and how they work against, and your antennas work against propagation, at that, kind of period of time. And so, that's always a good tool there as well. So, all right. Any kind of last bit things before we kind of, try to create a summary here and give somebody at least something to hang on to?
Yeah, we're not experts.
Yeah, that we stated.
Like we're kind of trial by error and learn on the go, right?
Yeah. We go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, no, not an expert, but there's always new things to learn, and with the solar cycle peaking, there's so much good activity going on with the sun. I wish I can't remember the lady, the astrophysicist that does
Tamitha Skov.
There you go.
You're talking about the weather woman? Yeah, space weather woman.
She does a great job explaining like what's going on with the sun and how it's going to affect the earth and how it's going to affect us as radio operators. So I'd highly suggest checking out something like that. But even with propagation, skywave propagation is bad. You can still go out and use ground wave propagation and have a ton of fun. So don't let bad reports discourage you from getting out.
Yep, well put. So yeah, just kind of to summarize kind of what I got from all you guys, I think the three things obviously we can take from it is that obviously the three factors that are going to affect you when you go out or when you're at home when it comes to propagation is your antenna, what the indices sort of say, and then obviously where you operate. So your the materials around you, what obstructions you might kind of have in the way, kind of all of those factors play in from, you might see something very different, at say being on the coastline versus being, very much nestled in a hilly area and very granite, kind of rocky soil, or, like Arizona where it's just dry desert, kind of all of those factors all play into what you can hear and what you can, basically get your the most RF out of your antenna up into the air. And then, it's kind of not so much luck. Well, it sort of is luck. I mean, we don't have any control. Once it goes off the antenna, it can go anywhere. There are days that I've heard stories where, the bands have been horrible, and all of a sudden, they get this E-skip, or they swing their beam the opposite direction, pointed towards, Alaska, and they're talking to Japan, or they're talking to, say Russia or France, because just the way the propagation works, they're able to get up in those upper layers and just bounce their signal and kind of do this like wizardry magic that we all wish we could do, like at a moment's notice, which we all know that we can't. So all that being said,
oh, beams.
Yes, I know. All right, exactly. This is a whole, whole episode. I don't think we will ever get a chance to touch on unless Todd all of a sudden wins the lottery and he's building his ham shack.
My tower,
So,
you mean?
Yes,
In
your
the
tower,
kitchen?
your kitchen, yes, and the the VHF UHF satellite system that we have to put up too as well. So, all can be contributed to our
like the
Patreon.
shake, right? Like the shake.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, hopefully you are still listening to us at this point and you haven't fallen asleep, or you just haven't turned us off yet. Either way, we're glad you were part of this show. If you've got any insight that you want to share with us, we've got a conversation kind of going over. I created a channel over in our Discord. So if you haven't been part of our Discord, you head over to our show notes, the links in the show notes, and they're on our website. And you can join in and be part of the Propagation Discord channel that we have. And, let's learn from each other. In essence, that's the best thing we can suggest. And you feel free to share your experiences or lack of experiences and ask questions. Let's keep the conversation going there and have a good good laugh at each other as we all make the mistakes we do when we're trying to learn propagation. So, all right. Well, with that, as always, we thank you guys for joining the Live Free and Ham podcast community. As always, if you haven't subscribed, we always ask the question, what are you doing? Come on. At this point, we've already been here a year. We're not going away anywhere anytime soon. So, come join in on the fun and be part of what's going on here. As always, there's several ways you can connect with the show. You can head over to our shop at livefreeandham.com/shop. Pick up any of our merch. Check out the new stuff we got in the store. We obviously are on all of the major podcast aggregators out there, so you can pick us up and leave us a review there. We also now have our SMS text review option. So if you want to say hello, you want to be featured on our next episode, leave us a quick text message by using the link in our show notes there. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, you can reach any of us and all of our contact info is on livefreeandham.com. And as always, from all of us, thanks again for listening. And 7-3.
7-3.
7-3.